This lesson is the Gospel of John, chapter 13. At this point, Jesus is in the very last 24 hours of his life. Remember that the Jewish day began at sundown. Sundown to sundown was a day. John is the only gospel writer who has accurately pinpointed this time in chapter 13 and 14 as being Wednesday. Wednesday began at sundown, and as we move through the chapter, you will see that the next day, this is the day of preparation, the next day, Thursday, will be the Passover feast. And this feast, of course, was celebrated 14 days out from the spring equinox. Chapter 13, verse 1. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And this is speaking not only of those disciples who were present with him, but all who are his own. Now, the feast of the Passover is yet to come, as you learn here in this first verse. 2. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. Now, the supper here, the Last Supper, of course, was not, as I said, the Passover meal. Jesus called his disciples together to enjoy this meal together in the supper room because he will be in the tomb by the time the actual feast of the Passover is celebrated. At this point, Jesus has been rejected. That last miracle, the raising of Lazarus, created quite a stir. He had quite an uproar of followers when he entered Jerusalem, and he has been condemned. The Sadducees and the Pharisees and the chief priest have a price on his head. 3. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God, 4. He riseth from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. Important there that he knew that he had come from God and that he would go back to God. Now, he would have removed his outer garment, which of course was that seamless robe worn by the priests. The towel would not likely, we think of a terry cloth type bath towel, but this would have been a large rectangular piece of fabric. And the girding, he would have wrapped himself in that towel. It would have been a good size, pulling it between the legs and girding it up so that it became breeches. This, by the way, was the garment of a household slave dressed in this towel. And 6. At 5, after that he poureth water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wash them with the towel wherein he was girded. This is a lesson in humility and service. Remember that he said, I am not come to judge, but to serve. The roads in that time and place would have been dusty. They wore sandals, and a person's feet would be dirty, and any respectable host would have offered a basin and water and a towel to wash feet. And if he were well enough endowed, he would have also had a household slave who, dressed as Jesus is here, who would have washed and dried the feet. Recall, if you will, several chapters back in this gospel that Jesus visited the home of a Pharisee, and the Pharisee did not offer the foot washing, which would have been expected. 8. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? 7. Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. In other words, these disciples will not fully understand until this day is out and the crucifixion has occurred. In fact, they really won't get it until they meet up with the glorified Jesus. Peter's action here, he is always the first one to step up and to speak, and he, of course, shows leadership qualities because he has a strong personality. 9. There's a deeper meaning here in the foot washing. It is spiritual cleansing as well as it is symbolized here by Jesus in the physical washing of their feet. And as we travel through life, our feet become dirty because we walk through and participate sometimes in things that leave us in need of repentance and spiritual cleansing. And the lesson here also is that the washing is always available. 9. Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my feet. Jesus saith unto him, He that is washed needeth not to save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. And ye are clean, but not all. Now, Peter would have, the day of preparation for the Passover, he would have come there clean. Only his feet would have picked up any dust as he walked through the streets of Jerusalem. And when Jesus says, You are not all clean, he is speaking of Judas. 11. For he knew who would betray him. Therefore said he, Ye are not all clean. 12. So after he had washed their feet, and had taken his garments, and was set down again, he said unto them, Know ye what I have done to you? He is asking them to understand the act of this foot washing. And of course, Judas has participated in the foot washing as well. 13. You call me Master and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. Now, this is the sacred name. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. Perhaps not physically, but this is certainly a call for us to be humble. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. 16. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. He is speaking of himself having been sent. And of course, these disciples are going to become apostles, and the meaning of that word is sent one, sent out. 18. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. And of course, he is referring to Genesis 3:15, the prophecy that the serpents, the heel and the bruising mentioned there in that verse in Genesis, he is referring to Satan having entered Judas. Now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass ye may believe that I am he. And again, that's that sacred name. And let me take you to Isaiah 52:6. Therefore, my people shall know my name. Therefore, they shall know in that day that I am he that doth speak. Behold, it is I. And of course, this was the prophecy of Isaiah that for the coming of the Messiah. And he has quoted that. 19. Now I tell you before it come, that when it come to pass, ye may believe that I am he. Repeating that verse and the use of the sacred name, Aya, Asher, Aya in the Hebrew. 20. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. These are going to be, except for Judas, going out to be received on the behalf of Jesus as they minister and began the church. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit, and testified and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you that one of you shall betray me. And 1,000 years before the fact, Psalm 41:9 makes that prophecy. 9, Psalm 41. Yes, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, hath lifted up his heel against me. The friend that would betray him, Judas, prophesied 1,000 years before, and once again making that reference to the heel in Genesis 3:15. 22. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spake. They had no idea Judas' inner thinking and really not understanding what he had become. 13. Now there was leaning on Jesus' breast one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. And this is thought and is likely John himself, who was leaning on the breast of Jesus, and he was leaning so that he could look at Peter and get his attention. 24. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake. 25. Then he, lying on Jesus' breast, saith unto him, Lord, who is it? And 26. Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give a sop, when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon Iscariot. Now, this meal would have been a lamb, and it would have been in the old Jews, and there would have been bread to sop up the liquid, and they would not have had individual plates, but they would have all partaken of food from this one big container in the middle of the table, and they would have, as the people in that region had adopted the method of eating of the Romans, they would have been reclining as they ate. Now remember that Jesus is the bread of life, and he offered that bread to Judas, who took it and ate it. 27. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, That thou doest, do quickly. This is the very last night that Jesus will be alive. 28. Now no man at the table knew what intent he spake this unto him. The other 11 did not understand. They possibly thought, for 29, and we will know what they thought. For some of them thought, because Judas had the bag, he was now the treasurer, that Jesus had said unto him, Buy those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. So they understood Judas having left as being for a good reason. It is, remember, Wednesday, the day of preparation for the feast, the Passover. The lamb was to have been bought. Anything that was going to be eaten at the feast was bought before sundown, before the beginning of that Passover high Sabbath, which will begin Thursday. Now, if you recall, when Jesus fed the 5,000. Whom did he ask to see about feeding the multitude? It was Philip. So Philip is no longer holding the bag, but Judas is. And he would have likely been given the bag as a matter of trust. Much like a Langston Hughes story about a young boy tries to steal a woman's purse and she drags him along, takes him home, goes in and fixes him something to eat and leaves her purse and him quite able to grab the purse and run. But he does not, because he senses that trust the woman has put in him. And that is why Judas is carrying the bag, the money. And of course, he likely had shown some affinity for managing financial affairs. And like people today, all of us, we are susceptible to letting something that we can do very well get in the way of what we ought to do. Judas here had let down the barrier to his soul and had let Satan in, and his eyes were wide open as to the consequences of what he was about to do, just as people in our world today commit grievous sins, thefts, and murders, and there are consequences. Now, Judas was the only person amongst these 12 who was a Judean. We are in Judea. We are in Jerusalem here. They are. He would have had an affinity to his nation. The others were Galileans. The Pharisees and the Sadducees were headquartered here in Jerusalem at the temple. He likely has already approached the Pharisees and the Sadducees to strike a bargain. Then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night. It's dark. He went into the dark rather than the light of day to betray his master. And the way we keep time from midnight to midnight, this would be Tuesday night. The way they kept time, it is Wednesday. It has been Wednesday since sundown, and it is now night. And it will be Wednesday until the next sunset. Therefore, when he was gone out, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him." In other words, his going to the cross will defeat death. 32. If God be glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. 33. Little children, yet a little while I am with you, ye shall seek me. And as I said unto the Jews, whither I go, you cannot come. So now I say to you, 34, a new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. You cannot go where I am going now. 36, Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, whither goest thou? And Jesus answered him, Whither I go, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterward. 37, Peter said unto him, Why can I not follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thee. 38, and Jesus, who knows all things, said, Jesus answered him, Wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice. The Gospel of John, chapter 13.